Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show. Welcome to my show. Now, I can tell you that the late, great Zig Ziglar had a number of quotes, but one of my favorite is, "It's not what happens to you that determines how far you will go in life. It's how you handle what happens to you." I'm a Zig Ziglar fan. I had the great pleasure of getting to know him while he was alive, and another Zig Ziglar fan is my friend Jason Cole. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, the reason you're on this show today is because you wrote a best-selling book. It's an easy read. It's called God Wastes Nothing, From Prison to Purpose.
Yes.
So tell us your story.
Oh, man. So much to tell. The gist of it is when I was 21 years old, I was good in school, good in college, very successful at business, and then just got tired of the success, I guess, and started hanging out with friends that I shouldn't have been around. And one night we went out into a field, and one of those guys pulled a gun, and one guy got killed that night, one guy got crippled, and I was held at gunpoint and forced to shoot one of my best friends at the time. So we were convicted of the first murder case in 20 years in Canton, Texas, the first capital murder case ever. And after fighting that case for about 2.5 years, I got 12 years for manslaughter and sent to prison. Never been in trouble a day in my life.
Wow. Well, you know, we think about what's happening during the pandemic, and some people have lost their jobs, they're discouraged. I can only imagine you're in prison. That must have been like
culture shock.
Culture shock, depression. I mean, what kept you from going into a downward spiral that you couldn't get out of?
I actually continued into a downward spiral. I didn't learn my lesson about being around wrong people, wrong friends. I actually went way out of character and joined a prison gang. That led to me actually leading the prison gang because I felt like I was smarter than the guys that I was following. So for about 5 years, I spent my time very angry, very bitter. I come from a martial arts background, so I spent a lot of time fighting. And like I said, I was a gang leader for about 5 years. And then God sent this young man into the dorm, and it was my job to find out who he was and what he was about. And if he didn't meet the criteria, my job was to kick him out of that dorm. And this guy wasn't trying to hear anything I had to say. And he said that I feel like God put me here and I'm not leaving. And this guy did not want to be in a gang or my gang. And lo and behold, we became best friends. He became a mentor and got me involved in church. And just a few times of going to church, I got saved. I gave my life to Christ in prison. And so I made a vow the day that I got saved that just as hard that I ran for the homeboys and all the crazy guys, I was going to run that hard for God. And about a year later, he called me to preach. So I started preaching in prison and helped start the first faith-based storm in the Texas prisons. And it just blew up from there. I did 11 years on that 12-year sentence, and then I came home in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an inspirational story. And I can tell you he's an amazing speaker. Here's a little clip of his speaking career.
You changed lives, and I hope you don't ever forget that. My name is Jason Cole, and I did 11 years in the Texas Department of Corrections. It means something to me to stand before you today, because you're trying to help men like me. And nobody knew that when I got locked up that I was going to come out a preacher. Nobody knew that I was going to go back to the prison that I was locked up at and start a mentorship and discipleship program. I know that I'm talking to a room full of people that are game changers. I know I'm talking full of room full of people who influence lives on a daily basis. I know I'm talking to some people that are superheroes that don't wear capes. You hold lives in your hands with your decisions. What is your why? My next question is, can I be part of your why?
Wow. You're watching yourself
I'm
saying,
like, man,
that man can preach.
That was good.
That's really good. Now, when did you know did you always know you had a gift for speaking?
Absolutely not. I was the opposite. People that knew me in high school, everybody said I was a good person and a good guy, a good friend, but I was very shy, very, very shy and bashful. So whenever God called me to preach, I was like, oh, yeah, you got the wrong guy. So it started out with, I grew up in church. I just happened to miss the whole point in church. And not till prison did I really realize that the Christian walk was about a personal relationship with Jesus. So I knew a lot about the Bible, knew a lot of Bible stories. So in one-on-ones, I would hear guys at the tables reading the Bible and trying to figure out what it meant. And I would just kind of chime in like, no, here's what you need to consider and stuff like that. And then I just kept hearing this thing about the way you teach, I can understand it. You should do that at church. I'm like, oh, no, I'm good in the small settings. So I heard that over and over and over again. And then God does call me to preach. I still fight it for a while because I don't have the desire to be in front of people or behind a microphone. And then lo and behold, I kind of made a deal with some friends. And I said, I'll do it one time. And when it flops, don't ever ask me again. And so there was about 400 incarcerated men in the gym that day whenever I preached, and it was a short 10 or 15 minute deal, and it was like a pep rally by the time it was over with. So several hundred men got saved, several hundred men walked away from their gang affiliations that day in 10 minutes. Like I've seen God do stuff in 10 minutes that you would think would take years to change in people's the way that they think.
We've got a little bit more video of you speaking. I know you like to speak to faith-based audiences. You speak to audiences from all walks of life. I'm impressed that you speak from the heart without notes.
Without notes, yeah.
Do you, when you get up in front of a room, do you know what you're going to say?
I usually have the topic. I usually know the topic. There's two different settings for me. If I go into teacher mode, I will have some notes because teacher mode, I don't want to lose a train of thought and lose the audience. But preaching mode, when both ways you're teaching, but in preaching mode, God usually gives me the topic. And then being incarcerated for 11 years, I have so much word in my heart already. God gives me the topic. I just get up there and trust Him, and it just rolls out like I've been planning it for months. But
I love it. I love it. Do me a favor, look straight into that camera and give some words of wisdom to the person who's discouraged right now, who might have had a setback, might have illness in the family, might have lost their job.
Awesome. Okay. Then my favorite, what I call my life verse, is the verse that changed my life completely. And I've always felt like a disappointment that I've let people down, discouraged. How in the world did this good guy end up in prison on this murder case and do damage to the victim's family, embarrass my family, things like that. But I meet people that deal with abandonment, rejection, loss of family, just all these things that we're wondering, like, is God really real? And if He is, does He care about my life? Well, me feeling like a disappointment, one day I read Psalms 139, verse 16, and it basically says this: God knew everything that you would ever do before you lived your very first day, and He took the time to record it in His book. That meant something to me, feeling like a disappointment and being discouraged all the time, because logically, if somebody knows everything you're ever going to do, good and bad, before you live your first day and chooses to create you anyway, how can you logically be a disappointment to that person? And when that set in my heart, that really just set me free. And good and bad knew that I was going to be involved in a murder case, but still saw enough worth in me and my life that He chose to create me anyway. And I never dreamed that life would be as beautiful as it is, and that I would get to influence the amount of people that I have so far.
Wow. I could listen to you for hours. Unfortunately, we're out of time for this segment. We're going to put your website up, and again, the book is called God Wastes Nothing, From Prison to Purpose. That's his Facebook page. Jason Cole, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. This has been beautiful. Thank you.
What a blessing. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.